All right, so tonight we have Tammy Petrosuli and Joseph Herron, and I'm going to give them a moment to talk about themselves and their background, you know, their training, their education, their experience as professional mediums. They're my friends. I'm so excited to have them. We're going to talk to you guys in a second to let you know how we know each other, which is kind of fun. And Rob is here. You guys saw Rob earlier, and he's just here to hang out as well. He's, you know, Rob is a working professional medium and a healer as well. So he just likes coming here and being here with us. So I'm going to open up first to Tammy Petrosuli. Tammy, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you came upon the path of becoming a professional medium.
It was so odd. I wrote a book about it.
Yay!
So it's Tammy Petrocelli.
Petrocelli, thank you.
Petrocelli. And I started out as a healer. So in 2013, after my youngest went off to college, I decided to turn the front of my house into a healing center and really concentrate on Reiki and bringing some metaphysical things to the area because there really wasn't anything here. And my husband asked me if we couldn't sell the furniture because in case this little thing of mine didn't work out. And yeah, well, you know, they didn't grow up with a mom who talked to the dead. They didn't grow up with a mom who channeled ascended masters. That all happened after I got serious about my Reiki. I just would be doing Reiki and would know things about people. And then I was starting to connect to their loved ones. I really didn't know what was happening here. It was kind of crazy. I think it was the first time I was quiet enough to hear them. You know, you got to be quiet when you're doing Reiki. So
yes.
I finally shut up enough to let spirit, you know, let me hear them. And they came in so fast and furious that within a year I was doing, readings and on the radio. I started studying with, I started studying with Janice and John and then Mavis. I've been to Arthur Findlay and studied with a lot of people there. It was just took off. And then after 2 years, 3 years, 3, 4, I don't know, 5 years, I realized I had all these great stories because I started channeling during meditation. And I decided that I was going to make a little book of what do you need to know today with these messages from ascended masters. And I realized that in my personal journaling, I had a lot of really nice stories to tell. So it's a small book. It'll take you 2.5 hours to read it. It's called A Midlife Awakening. Because I said, who becomes a medium at 55 years old? And it was actually, I had gone to a Mind Body Spirit Fest in Philly, got a reading, and the guy told me that my guides wanted me to get serious. I said, okay, about what? Well, now is your time. My time for what? Yeah, it's my time. I got no kids at home. What, you know, wine parties? I don't know. And he said, well, you're going to be doing what I'm doing. And the first thought came to me was, I just wasted $40. But he was really cute, Argentinian guy with this sexy accent. And I thought, well, I'll just look at him for the rest of the 20 minutes. And he said, oh, Spirit says you're not listening to me. I have to repeat myself. I said, okay. He stopped me the next day and he said, I have more messages for you. We're going to be working together. And I thought, oh, that's going over real well with my husband, you know. So we did. We did. He was my first mentor. We still have, in fact, he had gone to visit family in Argentina. He's been stuck there since the shutdown. He can't get out. He's been there over 2 months. He can't get out. But that's my story. I'm sticking to it. And I love every day. I love every day of my life that I get to do this work and that I was chosen to do this work.
I love it. And we have similar backgrounds, you, me, and Rob for sure, because we started as healers too. So I love how you said that it gave you the space to get really quiet. And I find that a lot of people who develop first as healers, they find that space to get quiet. So that was really interesting. Thank you. All right, Joseph, give us a little history about you, sir.
A little history about me. Well, I am referred to as a cradle medium, meaning that unlike the rest of you, I kind of grew up not really being a medium, but definitely being connected to the other side, which was very confusing for me as a Roman Catholic.
Oh, wow.
When I was in probably about 3 or 4 years old, I used to have what my mother referred to as nightly terrors. So these were times that spirit took me from my body and talked to me all night long. I don't know that if I would have been afraid if my mother hadn't called it nightmares or night terrors, because then I started to believe that I was asleep, and I wasn't asleep. And so that took me a little while to understand that I didn't have any control over when they came and when they started to talk to me. Still don't. I can kind of turn the volume up and down, but I can't turn it off. There's no way for me to turn it off completely. I just, Dave Vickers from England always says, I just tell them to bug off. So I'm a little bit nicer than that. I just say, you know, I'm driving the car, I'm in the shower, I'm doing something else right now. But growing up in grade school and high school, I was all in parochial schools and Catholic schools. And when I was in high school, especially as a freshman, we had a chapel inside the school, which I know is a kind of a foreign concept to most people, but I grew up always having a church or a chapel available to me. So as a freshman, I would sneak off because I went to an all-boys school and they were very strict. So I had to sneak off during lunch period and go to the chapel. And when I would go to the chapel, I would go there to have long fights with God because I didn't understand why God would choose to let me see, hear, feel things that I was never going to be able to share with another living person. And especially when you're a teenager, you have enough stuff to deal with. So I didn't understand why it is that, what the purpose was for God sharing that kind of information with me. Growing up, by the time I was 28 years old, I had lost all of my friends except for one. They had passed away in different ways and at different time periods. But one of the last people to pass was my good friend Todd Jewell. And when Todd passed away, he came back to me and he said, hey, you need to be able to tell other people that I'm okay. You need to tell them what's going on with me. So whether that was his family or that was friends, that was the first time that I thought, I need to open my mouth. I need to step forward. I need to start sharing some proof and some of the things that he was saying on the other side. So that's what got me into doing like one-on-one readings. Did not call them readings back then, did not call myself a medium back then. I just knew that I was able to connect with people that I feel are still here and still here with us. A lot of times for people, I think that when someone passes, it almost feels like there's a door slammed in your face and that relationship is completely over. And as we know, that's not the case. Even though it may feel that way, I believe, and I know I'm speaking to mediums out there, but I believe that people want to come back to talk to their own people. I don't think that their first choice is to go to a medium, you know. I don't think that they call up and say, yeah, I need you to track down this person and talk to them for me. But mediums are valuable in that sometimes in our own grief, in our own separation, we can't see them. We can't hear them through our grief. We don't even see the symbols of them around us. So that's where I think a medium is invaluable, to kind of step in and say, let me reopen or at least crack that door for you so that you can start to have a relationship again with your mom, your sister, your brother, your spouse, your child. You know, we just passed Mother's Day, and I was awestruck, as I am most of the time in my mediumship, with how many people have lost children, and that pain never goes away. But I was also talking to some people that no longer celebrate Mother's Day because they did not feel like they were mothers, because they did not have any living children here. And I think that's a farce. I think even if you never have physical children, even if you never have legally adopted children, motherhood and femininity go hand in hand. And it's part of your heart and it's part of your soul. And it's just a way to bring us all back together again.
I love what you said about mediumship, because the thing is like, God, you spoke so much truth right there in those little minutes that you just had, because it was like, yeah, I agree with you. I don't think loved ones come back saying, let me contact this medium to talk to my daughter or my son or somebody. Like, I think that was so beautiful and profound. And I do think that part of our role as mediums is ministry and counseling and healing and helping. So I have a lot of my students on here tonight, my mentorship students, and I'm really glad that you guys are hearing this, because this is why I keep telling you guys it's so important to develop your role. For Rob and I, we are certified life coaches, we're certified hypnotists, and we are also in Janet's ministry program with Joseph, because you have to have like a well-rounded appeal. Look at Tammy. Tammy is a healer, you know, and it all comes into play. So why don't you tell the good people how we know each other? The funny thing is we just realized tonight, because Tammy takes a lot of classes, Joseph takes a lot of classes, so do I. This is why I tell you guys all the time, don't stop learning. Even though I'm a teacher and these wonderful people here are teachers and mentors, we still keep learning. And I met Joseph and Tammy at the same time. What I remember is summer 2018, when we all met at the Journey Within Church, because John Holland was there with Janet No Havoc. And Tammy, were you like literally officially John Holland's stalker? I think you were, right?
Yeah. But that was the first time I think I had gone up for a class with him and Janet.
Me too.
And I'll never forget, one of the best lessons I got right then and there was in that class. And it was my first time on platform, and nobody was taking my information. And so this is to all of you who are in either my mentorship or Joseph's or Uma's. I said, well, I'm going to have to let them go and pull someone else in. And Janet was at the back of the room, and she said, don't you dare. She said, don't you dare. You keep going.
Yes.
And then what it was someone's mother-in-law who had passed before she was married to the husband. So she didn't know her, so she didn't feel comfortable in saying it was her, but it was actually the people that were with them. Do you remember that group that were from like North Carolina and Texas, or Georgia and Texas? They all met there. Do you remember that group?
Wasn't that Joseph's group from Kentucky? Because you came with a bunch of people, Joseph.
I came with several, yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was Joseph's group, wasn't it?
Okay, well, I remember that there was some from Georgia and some or Louisiana and some from Texas. Yeah, and it was one of the women in that group. And it was the biggest lesson to when I took my first class with Mavis, that she says, you're stubborn, aren't you? And, you know, I waited 2 years to ask her what she meant. And this year she told me, she goes, you got to be stubborn to do this.
You really do.
You got to be stubborn, people.
And just to set up the scenario a little bit for everybody else, at least from my perspective, you know, Janet No Havoc, which, you know, we're all in the know of. A lot of our students may or may not know who Janet No Havoc is, at least on a personal basis. She has been a mentor of mine for a very long time. A lot of great respect for Janet. and as well as John, I was digging through some stuff at my house, stored up in my third floor for a long period of time. And here I'm pulling all these John Holland things out. But so there's a small group of us that go up to Janet's church. And that was very powerful for me, since I had never been to the Journey Within, had only read about it. So Janet and John Holland, two powerful mediums, are sitting in the back of this church, in the very back of the church.
It was nerve-wracking.
Very, very, you know, with the pad and pen in hand. And they have a camera on you, and you get up onto the altar, or onto what we refer to as a platform, and bring through somebody, you know, which is nerve-wracking. I was also trained partially in Camp Chesterfield, which is another wonderful spiritualist camp. And they always taught me, never read for your teacher. Never read for your, you know, your mentor or whatever. But I don't have any control over my mediumship. You know, who wants to come through is who comes through. You know, it's not like I can pick and choose. I'm going to bring through this person. So when I got up there, I was directed that I was in the back of the room, and I was just like,
no,
okay, great. You know, and I thought it was going to be John, which wasn't going to be so bad, because I wasn't really friends with John Holland at that point. And it turned out to be Janet. And I was just kind of floored, because I kept thinking, oh my God, don't read for Janet. Don't read for Janet. This will not be good. But I allowed Spirit to kind of take over and give the message. And as we were on break for the class, she kind of pulled me into a side room, and she was just like, I cannot tell you how spot on that was. But she said, there's some details that I'm in the works of, which later I found out was that she bought the historical site where the spiritualist started, and spiritualism started, and she bought the old schoolhouse and stuff. So she's now running that, but she didn't want to tell anybody, because she was still in negotiations, and she didn't have a signed contract back then. But it came through my reading, and she said, I can't tell you what it is, but she said, I'll meet you in Lilydale this summer. She said, we'll go out, we'll have lunch or dinner or breakfast or something. And she said, I'll tell you then.
That was a nerve-wracking class, because just like how Joseph read for Janet, I read for John Holland that class. And it blew my mind, because kind of like Tammy, when I went up there, nobody could take what I was saying. And I was ready to give up. I brought through somebody's mom. Her name begins with J. She cooked for the whole family. She had this bracelet that her child had given her, that they went on vacation and got her this bracelet, this like charm bracelet. Nobody could take it. And then finally I see John's hand raises, and I'm like, you better not be talking to me right now, sir. I was very nervous. And then he said, Uma, that's my mom. And I said, oh my God, just kind of like Joseph, I was like dying. And it was intimidating, because they're sitting there exactly like Joseph said, with the little notepads and the pens, and they're watching you and they're writing, and then the camera's going, and I'm like, just kill me right now. Just kill me right now.
Plus the fact that all the students, the students that were there that day, all blew it all away. I mean, every student was very powerful, very gifted. I mean, we're being critical of ourselves, but my group that I went up with said, I don't want to go up there now. Have you heard all the other great mediums in this room? I don't want to go up there. So every student was excellent.
It was an advanced class, though. They did market it as an advanced class. And I was nervous, because the last time I had done platform was at Arthur Findlay College in England. And I had a tough tutor in that one, because when you got up on the stage, literally in the sanctuary of, Arthur Findlay College, she would pull you down. If you were not performing up to her standards, she'd be like, okay, that's enough. I've seen enough. Next.
Okay, who's that? Because I don't want to take her class.
I'll tell you later. I'll tell you later. But it was rough. And my first time doing platform, and I was sweating bullets, and I got up there, and guess who I brought through? Her friend, her friend. I was like, Uma, either God hates you right now because you just keep bringing through all these tutors, people, you know, because it's now more, when you bring through your tutors, people, it's more, the evidence has to be there because they know these people. So you can't, you know, you kind of almost want your classmates for it to be like, for it to be Tammy's person or Rob or Joe, because they'll help you along. Oh yes, that fits. I know how that fits. You know, we help each other.
It was still nervous for us being there because we didn't know each other, and at different parts we had to read for each other. Uma was sitting like on the other side of my friends, and so at one point, you know, Janet or John says, "Okay, we want you all to pair off and do a reading for each other, but it can't be somebody that you know." So I kind of like, I looked over there and I was like, I want to read for her.
Wait, that message is crazy though. Let me tell you what happened with that message. First time meeting Joseph, didn't know him from before. He sits down across from me. Rob's not with me in this event. He sits down across from me and he says, I know the exercise is, I'm supposed to bring through your loved one, but I have your husband's mother here. I was like, I don't have a husband. And he's like, not yet. He didn't even bat an eyelash. He was just like, not yet. He will be though. And he just kept going with his message. And in my head, I'm like, who are you to tell me? You know, I was like getting all indignant in myself. But then he told me that something that Rob and I actually had confirmation from John Holland. And he said that Rob was my twin flame and that his mother came through to say, now I know why it never worked out for anybody else with you guys. You two were meant to be together. And the first time I met John Holland and I took one of his classes was in 2015 when Rob and I first started dating. And Rob and I went to Richmond to see him. And we were in this auditorium with like 500 people. And he hopped off the stage and came and stood in front of me and Rob and said, how long have you guys been married? And again, I'm like, we're not married. He's like, yet. I was like, what's with John and Joseph? Like, what's with all these like little, you know, seership stuff? And then he said, this is a beautiful couple here, really beautiful energy. And then he brought Rob on stage to do dowsing rods to show the power of Rob with the dowsing rods. But we digress. What we're trying to show you guys is that as you take your classes, you're going to find a community. And it's so important, in addition to taking the classes and learning from your teachers, it's so important to nurture that community. After I left Tammy and Joseph, I friended them on Facebook. I kind of stalked them on Facebook, to be honest. And, you know, just kind of like want to see what they're doing or what's going on. And then I'm always trying to like work with them or collaborate with them. So the thing is like, look around you right now, who's around you as you are developing, because this is probably going to be your community as you go on. So what I want to do is actually open up the lines for those of you on YouTube and here in Zoom. I know that you guys are developing mediums or psychics, or you probably are not developing, but you have questions. So let's do it this way. You have Tammy, you have me, you have Joseph. When you ask your question, put a name to it so we can kind of get through a lot of these questions quickly. I know a lot of you guys have questions, so I think I see something in there.
And I just want to let them know, we're talking about 50 to 60 people in a class.
Yeah.
Not 20.
It's a
50
lot
to
of people.
60 in a class.
Yeah, and when you go like Arthur Finlay, I was in a class of 100 for my very first class, which was 2016, and Eileen Davies. She's one of my...
Really?
I love Eileen. And I'm so happy now she's online because she didn't really leave the UK. But Michael brought her out to California, and I have Michael coming on here in 2 weeks. So I'm so glad. She's an amazing trance medium. Is anybody here interested in trance? Amazing. Between her and Colin Bates. Colin is Rob's favorite mentor and teacher and friend. But I love her for trance. So does anybody have any questions for these guys here? Let me check YouTube too. All right. Margie says, I know I have a gift. What will you advise to a beginner like me? What do I need to do to develop my gift? So she didn't ask that to anybody in particular. So Tammy and Joseph, I'll let you guys have a go at that.
You want me to go first, or would you want to go first?
Tammy, ladies first.
Oh, aren't you sweet? Margie, first thing you want to do is begin meditation. Find a really good teacher, if you're not doing meditation on your own, or if nothing is coming to you during meditation, then change what you're doing or explore other areas of meditation to raise your personal vibrational level, and find a tutor, find someone to work with. Because I find that even some of my students who are very strong, they know they're gifted, they just don't know what to do with it, or they just start doing readings. And I'll tell you, there is a professionalism, there is a way to do it. And every single class, and I have spent thousands of hours and thousands of dollars, and I learned something in every single class that I take still. So let someone help you. We want to help people, other people,
Yes.
develop. So find someone you're comfortable with, and don't stick with just one. It's okay. I've taken people up to Mavis's classes. I took people over to Tony's classes at Arthur Findlay. Yeah, don't be afraid, and to explore, because you will see yourself grow so much faster.
I'm glad you really said that, because I believe in mentorship. It's taken me to where I'm at now. And I'm glad you mentioned the money, because Carlos, my mentorship program is with Carlos, the medium here in Virginia. And we talked about it. And I said, Carlos, how much money do you think you've spent over the years in developing? And we both had the same number, which was $50,000. We've both spent around $50,000 in terms of taking classes and mentorship. Joseph, what do you have to add to that?
On the same note, one of the big things for me is to find like-minded people, find a development group. Nobody has to know everything. We have a lot of people that are in rural areas that just want to meet up, with 2 or 3 people, and just kind of share their own knowledge. I think it's amazing that so many people that come into my mentorship or come into a development class or whatever says, I have been looking for this forever. When I was growing up, I had no mentorship. I had no development class. And so I had to stumble across people like Janet Nohavik. This house that I'm sitting in now is a perfect example. Lilydale, New York. If you've never seen the documentary, you can look for it on YouTube. HBO made a documentary about Lilydale called No One Dies in Lilydale. And Lilydale, on a normal year, has some amazing classes, has amazing spots for you to meditate, has amazing trails, has an amazing lake that you can kind of gaze over and see spirit in very active form. I don't know what it is that makes certain places throughout this world more powerful, more conductive, but Lilydale is definitely one of them. My mediumship takes on another level when I'm on the grounds here. And it's not about necessarily going to have your own reading or doing anything, but it's just about being present, being about present in the moment. I also say to challenge yourself. We make it seem scary sometimes, and I know that none of us mean to, talking about going in front of our mentors. A couple of years ago, I started to do big venues where we'd have 300 or 400 or 500 people. And I was a little bit nervous to do it by myself. And so I would bring in some of the heavyweight. I would bring in John Holland, or I'd bring in Janet or whatever to be the main person. And then I'd kind of scoot up there on stage with them. But you really have to trust in, have a relationship with your guides, have a relationship with spirit, to know that they're not going to make you say or do something that's going to ridicule you, or say something that you're uncomfortable with. And so when I'm up there, I'm a spokesperson for spirit.
I love that. And where Joseph is sitting right now is in his house in Lilydale, which, by the way, shameless plug, it's called the Southern Comfort Inn, that you can Google and look up on Facebook and on the web. And he is taking reservations, for people who want to stay in Lilydale. I recommend it highly. And we did table tipping, right, Joseph? Right in his Well, okay, so it just, let's put it this way. We didn't mean to do table tipping. The table just moved on its own. Let's just say that.
There you
Okay.
go.
We have nothing to do with that. It just started moving. But I agree with you 1,000%. Like Lilydale is, I'm looking forward to coming in August, even though my mentor is not going. I'm still interested in going, and I hope Rob goes with me so that I don't drive alone. But Joseph, there is a question for you that I wanted to move this to. Jerry asks, Joseph, how do you know what type of medium you are? I'm in the researching stage of this and learning to connect with my spirit guides and angels. I've had some experience with hearing names or feelings of something going to happen, and it does.
So most of the time people ask about what type of medium. They're referring to clairs more than the actual type of medium. For me, types of mediums are very limited. You're either a physical medium or you're a mental medium. Those are basically the two types of mediumship. But most of the time people are saying, well, am I clairvoyant? Am I clairsentient? So my best thing is not to worry about it too much, to identify each one of the clairs and make sure that you understand that clairvoyance is seeing, whether that's out here or inside of here. That clairaudient can be inside your head or can be listening to out here. So understand the clairs, and then kind of tag into notice when you're starting to bring through somebody from the other side. If you're referring to, am I seeing them? Am I hearing them? Am I feeling them? When I first started going to places like Lilydale and Camp Chesterfield, Camp Casadega in Florida, mediums would go around going, are you clairvoyant? Are you clairvoyant? Because that seemed like the superpower, right? Clairvoyance. You got to be able to see it because that tops everything else. I don't believe that at all. My clairsentience with a feeling, okay, is so strong in me. Sometimes somebody walks in and I'm like, oh my gosh, you know, you've lost your son. It's not because I first see the sun, it's because I feel it in my heart. So don't worry about what type of medium you are. Start to practice, and then you will learn which kind of clair you're predominantly using. I also don't buy, and I've read many times that mediums will say you are one type of clair. And I don't think that that's true. Different people come in just like personalities, having different personalities. One spirit will talk to you, another spirit will be more visual, another spirit will be more feeling. Just my take on it.
I love that. Brooke has a question. I'm going to give this to Tammy. Can you have spirits come through for people in this group, or do you need to be physically present within the group to pass on messages?
Okay. Let me make sure I'm understanding her. I'll just say that we can, and I believe, you know, the other mediums will agree, we can do phone readings, we can do Skype readings. You don't have to be in person, but on top of that, you can also be a messenger. I have done readings where someone says, that sounds like my coworker's son.
Yeah.
And we'll say, well, you are being blessed with being able to bring that message to your coworker. Their son wants to tell them this or that or the other. And I'm glad you brought up the clairs, Joseph, because a medium needs to work with, just because you go to a medium, you're the sitter getting a reading, you pay the bill, you make the appointment, you're there. We're working for spirit, number one. Yes. And yes, Joseph is correct. Different spirits will work different ways. I can have two spirits come in and I'm giving a reading, and this was a really good one. She said, well, the description you're giving sounds like my mother's father, but what you're saying, the words sound like my father's father. Okay, let me find out. I go back. Yes, I've got both grandfathers here. I asked them to separate. One put on a complete fishing outfit, hat with the lures, the vest. The other one put a cardigan on, sat down in a chair for me. with a soda, not a beer, a soda and a newspaper. And she said, that's exactly right. And they took turns giving me messages for her.
That's
And,
I love that. Double linking is, that's
oh
the
yeah,
spot right there.
you know, but so I can still say, okay, who else do they want to bring through? But one of them at that time was using clairaudience stronger. The other was using clairvoyance stronger, until I asked them to separate. And sometimes I'll have a difficult time getting a visual of someone, but I will feel them. I will start doing what acting like them, feel, you know what I mean? Like, oh my God, that's exactly, you know, yeah, that's exactly what my brother did, whatever, you know. But yeah, and to go back to, let me go back to Brooke to make sure if I answered that correctly. You can sometimes be, it doesn't happen often, but yeah, you can sometimes be in the store buying something and just kind of like, no, I'm not telling that person that you're here. You're going to have to go to them and have them make an appointment. You know, about getting a message from spirit when you're not intending to do a reading. So it can come at any time.
I'm going to ask this one last question. I'm going to gear this towards Joseph. And then after this question, I would like Tammy and Joseph to think about this question. My question to you guys is, now that you're professional mediums and you're working, what is one bit of advice you wish that your younger self would have been given? And I'll share mine too. And I think that would be a really nice way to end this tonight. But Joseph, I'm going to gear a question towards you. And Tammy, I want you to think about this for a second. What is one bit of advice that you wish you had when you first started out on your journey? Okay. So Joseph, here's the question. Once you have connected to an entity, how can you keep that link long enough that you can get the messages?
It's a great question. I believe that it's much like going to the gym or working any other type of muscle, that when you first start to do this, give yourself permission to say, it's okay if I can only keep that link active for a minute or two. The longer that you do it, the more that you practice, the more that you work that type of fictional muscle, that spiritual muscle, the longer you're going to be able to retain the link. I remember years ago, I worked with another medium, and we had a bunch of student mediums, and they were going to kind of perform one night or be in front of a group of people giving messages for the very first time. And a lot of them were sitting around right before we went on stage, on platform, and they were already getting their links. And she said, oh no, don't get your link, because she said, you may not be able to retain that link, not an active link. And so you'll get up there and you'll give the information, but you no longer are connected to that person. So just give yourself some time and some practice. It will eventually lengthen the amount of time. Dave Vickers from England always teaches his students a technique where if he's teaching a bunch of students, they get a link and he says, hold that link, and he goes on to the next person and the next person. He's like, you still holding your link? Okay, hold it right there. He may come back and let that person say a couple of words, and he's like, okay, hold that link, and he goes on to another person. It just takes practice and repetition.
I'm really excited you said that, because these people asking these questions are my students. And on Saturday in mentorship,
you have to all of your students need to tell you that I want to come and work with you and your students on mediumship.
You guys are welcome anytime, Joseph and Tammy. You're welcome to come and bring your knowledge here, because we definitely could use it. But on Saturday we had a class. This was I have 3 mentorship programs, and this one was intuitive mentorship. And on Saturday we had to do angels, and I had them do channeling for an hour. These little babies were wiped. They were wiped, and I loved it because I'm like, now you see, it's a muscle. Everything you just said is exactly what I said. It's a muscle that you have to build because, like, Tammy, Joseph, let's be real. We have to sometimes channel for 10 hours when we're doing festivals and, you know, wellness fairs and events. Like, you got to channel for 10 hours. And it took us a while to build up to that. Like, now my limit is 20 readings in one day. I can do 20 readings and no more, you know, but in the beginning, you do like what, 50, right? You probably could
I do
50.
really long readings though.
Yeah.
My readings are basically an hour. Even though we advertise for a half an hour, my readings are generally an hour. So 4 or 5 hours of doing readings, I'm kind of spent.
Yeah, I'm loving that my students are seeing this. I told you guys, it's a muscle that you have to build. So I want to ask Tammy about your bit of advice. What would be your bit of advice you wish you had when you first started out on your journey?
Trust yourself. Trust yourself that you're not making this up, because once you start getting into the left brain and learning the tricks, the little tools, because once you get into that left brain, you will start to lose your connection. Like when someone says, this happened. One of my students sent me a thing, but my dad had a special nickname for me. So now the person is just trying to figure that out. She's almost going into a guessing phase. Well, what are you doing? You're disconnecting from spirit at that point. You're going into psychic. You're staying away from mediumship, from the connection. So I would say, trust yourself that you're not making this up, that what you're getting is what you're supposed to give, not necessarily what the sitter is expecting.
I love that. Thank you.
That's excellent advice.
Thank you.
Joseph, what would be your bit of advice you wish you had when you first started out?
I would say the same thing as Tammy. The only thing I would add is I would understand boundaries from an earlier age.
Rob's smiling.
Boundaries for you in spirit, boundaries for you and clients, boundaries. That is what sometimes will break a person apart. You know, throughout time, throughout history, I think that there have people that have had very special gifts. They did not have a mentor. They did not have boundaries, and it tore apart their lives. And that is completely possible in this day and time. My other advice is that to understand that you are always in control. I never let one of my students give somebody a message that is inappropriate in any way. Spirit never tells somebody else what to do. Spirit wants you to leave your husband and wants you to leave your job or wants you to do this. No, Spirit never speaks that way. You are always in control, and you are responsible.
I like that. My advice to myself, when I was younger, is actually kind of bordering between Tammy and Joseph. It's funny how we all kind of have the same thing, but for me, it would have been self-care. It really would have been, Uma, take better care of yourself, because this work, the problem is the mindset that you think, oh, I'm just sitting here doing readings all day, you know, like, what's that? But the actual thing, like your mind, you're running like a mental marathon. Doing all those connections and holding that focus and being in the power of spirit, like all of that takes all of you to work. And I was very bad at just like, oh, I did a reading. Okay, I'm going to go and take care of my kids. Oh, I'm going to go do this, and not giving myself that downtime. And I got very sick. I'm not going to lie. I got very sick. So my advice, if I was, 10 years ago, I would have been like, Uma, make sure you have your self-care and you're taking care of yourself. I know you guys have other questions coming in, but we do have to end it because Tammy has to be somewhere else. So I want to thank you all for showing up here tonight. In 2 weeks, we have another 2 mediums coming in, the beautiful Michael Mayo and Brittany Lynn Buckwalter, who Brittany was also in our class, guys, with John Holland and Janet. That it's funny how we all kind of just grew together, but I'm pretty sure we're going to be having Tammy and Joseph come back because you guys like them, right? They were awesome. They were awesome here tonight. So we're definitely going to bring them back on the circuit. For all of you who attended here on Zoom, you will be getting an email with Tammy and Joseph's contact information. So you can contact them for a booking for a reading or just to check out their websites. Both Joseph and Tammy do mentorship, as do I. I do online and in-person mentorship. Tammy does in-person, Joseph does in-person, but I believe you guys in the future might be doing some online. You never know.
Everything's online right now. So Spirit Circle tomorrow night. We've been doing it online. Perfect. And then my first mentorship, it'll be an online class in June and July.
Wonderful. So when I send you guys out the email tonight and you get, actually Tammy, if you and Joseph could just drop in the comments your email, just to be on the safe side, and you know, whatever glitches happen and they don't get the email that's coming out tonight, if you guys could just drop either your website or your email in the chat, then that way they have it. So, oh, you're welcome, Deborah. Deborah said, thanks for all you're doing. Yeah, you know, we got to bring the communities together, and you guys got to know that this was not an easy road for either of any of us, and we struggled and we made it. And if we can make it, you guys can make it too. All right.
But when we're done with the social distancing, there are so many great communities. I mean, we talked a little bit about Lilydale, New York. It's the largest and oldest spiritualist camp, my favorite. But Camp Casadega, Camp Chesterfield, there's tons all across this great planet. Find yourself in one of them.
Lotus community. For those of you that are in Virginia, that's a large community here in Virginia. So
you know, even if it's just to go and spend a couple of days, you know, part of that fee that you were talking about earlier, sometimes it's travel. You know, when I used to come up here to Lilydale, I didn't have a house here. You know, I paid for my hotel. I had to pay for food. I had to pay for everything else, but it gave me what I needed. So spend the money, take the time, visit a community that you fit in well, just like Lotus.
And manifest it. Manifest it. It'll happen. If you want it bad enough, you tell the universe. That's what I did. I said, universe, I want to travel.
Exactly.
And I can't tell you how many countries, exotic countries I have been to in the last 4 years. In fact, when I changed my private Facebook from Tammy Petrocelli to Tammy Travels, I booked two trips, one to Egypt, one to Spain that night. And Joseph, do you know my good buddy, Hoyt from Chesterfield?
I do know Hoyt.
Love Hoyt.
Rob
I do know Hoyt.
Yes, I hosted Hoyt at my place.
Ooh, I missed Hoyt because Rob went and saw him and I didn't get to see him, and he was supposed to come here, but then something else happened.
Well,
so.
His partner and he had another family member has been ill for the last few years, so
yeah,
he hasn't been doing much traveling. So he hasn't been back here. I did want to real quick, if it's okay, just somebody had said, what is the difference between psychic and mediumship? So every medium is a psychic, but not every psychic is a medium. A medium is a psychic that can not only read your energy, but also communicate with spirit on the other side. Now, and there could be angel communicators, loved ones communicators, ascended masters communicators. So there's different levels in the mediumship. But the psychic is the one that reads your energy and can still connect. And we all do that anyway. Joseph, I didn't know if you want, or Uma, if you wanted to.
No, I was just trying to be respectful of your time, love. And I was going to ask everybody to, if you guys can come on out of the chat, I will stop recording. And Joseph and Rob and Tammy, just hang back for 2 seconds, okay?
Thank you.
I will. Thanks, guys. Thank you for coming.